It was the sound of the latch that woke me, a soft click, followed by the hesitant creak of the back door. Grandma's silhouette moved through the blue dark of our yard, her nightgown brushing the grass like fog. She didn't know I was awake. She didn't know I'd followed her. The moon caught the curve of her face, sharp, anxious. Then another shape emerged from the shadows near the fence. A man, broad-shouldered, dressed in black. I froze. Grandma reached into her pocket, pulling something small, wrapped in cloth. She handed it to him. Her voice trembled as she whispered, "It's better she never knows." The man nodded. Then he disappeared into the dark. I knew that shape, that gait. My father used to walk that way. But he was dead. Or, at least, that's what Grandma had always said. I stood there, barefoot, heart splitting itself into questions I couldn't ask. She turned then, her face pale in the moonlight, her lips tight with secrets. For a second, her eyes brushed mine through the shadows, then moved on, pretending she hadn't seen me. That night, I didn't sleep. And when morning came, I looked at her hands. They were shaking as she poured the tea, the same hands that had buried my father's watch with trembling grace. Only now, they smelled faintly of betrayal. She hummed as she buttered toast. I watched her carefully, pretending to read, pretending not to know that the night had split something between us. The watch had been my father's only keepsake, a military one, engraved with his initials. She'd told me she'd buried it with him, so he'd never be without time again. But last night, she'd given it away, to someone alive. And the words she'd spoken, "It's better she never knows." They looped inside me like a broken lullaby. Never knows what? That he was alive? That she'd lied? That my grief had been built on something false? I stared at her as she smiled faintly, adding sugar to my tea, as if love was still safe here. "Sleep well, Ayesha?" she asked. I nodded. Yeah. The lie slid easily out. It tasted familiar now. After breakfast, she went to her garden, the same spot where she always said my father's ashes were buried. I stood at the window and watched her place a hand on the soil. Her lips moved like a prayer, but I couldn't hear the words. All I heard was the silence between them. The next days blurred into patterns of observation. Her walks grew longer, her phone calls quieter. Once, I heard her whisper a name, Imran. I didn't ask who he was, I just started listening. When she left her phone on the table, I took it, scrolled through her call log. Imran, private. Dozens of calls, late nights. Hidden beneath the innocent veneer of an old woman tending flowers in grief. I copied the number down. That night, when she went to bed, I called it. A man answered. His voice was heavy with age, but alive. "Who is this?" I didn't speak. I just listened. There was wind behind him, distant traffic, a city hum. Then he said something that made my breath stop. "Mother, are you there? Mother." I hung up. The silence that followed was worse than any scream. For 3 nights, I said nothing. I needed proof, needed the truth to bruise me completely before I could touch it. On the 4th day, I took the old photo album from her shelf. Between 2 fading pages, I found a picture. My father as a young man standing beside another man. The same eyes, the same smile. Imran. His brother, the one Grandma had never spoken of. But she told me my father died in the war. There was no body, only the watch. And now, that watch was with someone who called her mother. That evening, she found me sitting on the porch steps, the photograph open in my hands. She froze. "Where did you find that?" "In your album," I said. "You told me he died, but he didn't, did he?" Her lips trembled. "Ayesha, listen to me." I stood. "You gave him the watch, the one you said you buried. You lied." Tears filled her eyes. She sank into the chair as though her bones couldn't hold the weight anymore. "It was for your protection," she whispered. "Your father, he didn't die in the war. He deserted. He changed his name. He became someone else. I promised him I'd never tell you. You wouldn't understand." I stared at her. Protection. The word felt like poison. I thought of the birthdays I'd spent at his fake grave, the prayers whispered into the dirt, the ache I'd carried all my life, all built on her lie. She reached for my hand. I didn't move. "He was weak," she said softly. "I did it to save your image of him." I looked at her. This woman who'd built my childhood on deception and called it love. "You saved nothing," I said quietly. Her hand fell away. I waited until morning. She sat at the kitchen table, staring into her untouched tea. I placed a small box before her. The watch. Polished. The same initials glinting under the light. "I met him," I said flatly. "He's alive." He told me everything. Her face turned white. "You didn't," she whispered. I did. I let the silence breathe. Let it press into her chest until she began to tremble. "He asked me if I could forgive him," I continued. "I told him no. That the dead should stay buried." Her eyes filled with horror. "Ayesha, what did you do?" "Nothing," I said. "I just told him the truth. That his mother had been lying for 20 years. The color drained from her completely. She pressed a hand to her mouth, gasping as though truth was suffocating her. I turned away, listening to the quiet collapse of her world. It was almost gentle. I left that morning, packed my school bag, just as quietly as the night she betrayed me. She called my name once, faintly, but I didn't answer. Outside, the air was heavy with rain. The watch ticked softly in my pocket, a heartbeat that wasn't mine to keep anymore. I realized something then. Love doesn't always lie with malice. Sometimes it lies to protect, to preserve, to cage. But betrayal feels the same, no matter how tenderly it's delivered. As I reached the gate, I looked back one last time. The house stood still, curtains unmoving. And for the first time in my life, silence didn't scare me. It comforted me. Because it belonged to me now. The quietest goodbye is the one that never needs to be spoken.